Our next speaker has been in health and freedom movement for a long time, but she's the author of many, many books on the subject of nutrition. She's been a nutritionist for many, many years, and she's been willing to learn and relearn the things that she was taught way back then as a University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA student. She found out there were some truths, some incorrect information, and then she had to learn about this, learn about that, learn from many other researchers. She's really put a lot of years and decades of other people's work and her own research together to bring you about a very important subject she has to share with you. That is the subject of one of the most common things in our diet, sugar. Is it the sweet suicide? We'll let you decide for yourself. Please help me give a warm hand of welcome to Nancy Appleton.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I reside in San Diego, and I came up for the day. I have known about your group and have been to actually meetings a few times a few years ago. And today I will be speaking about sugar. I'm going to introduce my speech with a 7-minute part of a DVD that I made called Sweet Suicide. And he died at age 51 of heart disease. No voice, huh? We're out in, as you can see, we're out in the cemetery. The rain's coming down. Now you can see what's in front of all the tombstones. Sorry about the sound. That's Doris Rapp, Dr. Doris Rapp. She's a pediatrician. And this boy's by the name of Kevin. He's 3 years old. And Doris has asked him to eat. Uh-oh. No, you can just barely hear her voice. She says to him, take as much sugar as you'd like. Isn't he beautiful? He took 7 teaspoons. Oh, 6, there we go. You see, they think that it had nothing to do with the sugar. The kid was just having a temper tantrum. Well, he was, but there was a reason. touching your
even
heart.
knowing what.
That kids don't have to go through that. All of them don't react to sugar that way, I have to tell you, but some do. The other little boy was also, Brian was there too, and we didn't use him in the DVD, but he too had a different type of a problem with the sugar. This is a 60-minute DVD, and I'm in the middle booth out there, and you can get this. I'm amazed at what I have found, the information that I've found. And that this work is all that you're going to hear today based on that film and my new book, Sweet Suicide. I wrote a book on sugar 25 years ago, 30 years ago, called Lick the Sugar Habit. How many of you are familiar with my work? Ah, we do have quite a few. Lick the Sugar Habit. And it's still doing very well today, 25 years later. But it had to be brought up to date. And this book is being published by Penguin Putnam. And they've been so not very good to me, so I decided to go back to my small publisher. So I did it with Sweet Suicide. A whole new, there are lots of things in Lick the Sugar Habit that are not in Sweet Suicide. But Sweet Suicide has been all brought up to date. I wouldn't turn away one word from this. It's all very, very good information. There's just more. Okay, here we go. Next slide. Oh. I'm sorry you can't read this so very well either. We don't know quite why. But let me read it to you. 1 out of 6 people will get diabetes today. 1 out of 5 will have mental illness. 1 out of 3, although it's closer to 2 now, will get cancer. 1 out of 2 will have cardiovascular disease. Birth defects are on the rise. Cancer is #1 cause of death in children. New diseases that resist medical care are emerging. Pharmaceutical drugs are taken off the market continually because of side effects. New tissues are becoming inflamed, and new names are being given for these diseases. GERDS, acid reflux disease, what a joke that is. Syndrome X or metabolic syndrome, and others. Okay, I think you can read this. I thought you would just like to be interested to know what some of the facts are about sugar. We eat approximately 142 pounds of sugar per year. The teenage boy eats twice that amount. 4 grams of sugar equal 1 teaspoon. Remember that. Anybody have a candy bar here or a Coke or any drink? Okay, well anyway, look on your nutritional facts, and it always says how much the container is, how many per servings in the container, gives the fat, the protein, the carbohydrates, and the sugar. Well, the sugar is in grams, and most people have no clue what that is in teaspoons. What do grams mean to me? We deal in teaspoons. Well, now you know. There are 4 grams per teaspoon. A Coca-Cola has 40 grams of sugar, a 12-ounce Coke. So there you are. So now you can't blame anybody else except yourself for how much sugar you eat, because now you know how to look at it. Okay, here are all the names that I have for sugar. You can read those yourself. And I mean all of those, whether they be cane or whether they be raw or whether they be organic. These forms of sugar are called what we call mono or diglycerides. And they digest very fast, get into the bloodstream, and suppress the immune system, which I'll go into. So it doesn't matter if it's honey with all those nutrients in it. It's ridiculous. The one today is down at the bottom right almost. Agave nectar is getting this big push. It's the worst one of them all, I have to tell you. And the reason is because table sugar and fruit and high fructose corn syrup are all they are a disaccharide, two simple sugars. They're made up of glucose and fructose, approximately 50-50, 50% glucose, 50% fructose. This agave nectar is 90% fructose and 10% glucose. And it's the fructose molecule that's the killer. Glucose isn't great, but it's the fructose molecule because, you see, it isn't metabolized like glucose is by insulin being secreted to help the glucose get into the cell. It goes to the liver, and it can cause a fatty liver. It can do all sorts of bad things. So you read anything. Unfortunately, Pamela's cookies have just come out they're using agave nectar. And I've sent her all the information. I hope she changes those because they're a good form of a health food cookie almost. Okay, so that's, when I speak of sugar, it's all of those. The Price Pottinger Nutritional Foundation is the first place where I heard about this, all this information. And the reason that I did is because when I was 40 years old, do you mind if I sit down? Okay. Thank you. Uh-oh. Thank you, would you hear? Great. Okay. Years ago, 35 years ago, I went to the Price Pottinger in San Diego Nutrition Foundation and found out, I heard about a talk on food allergies. And I knew this since a kid. I was scratching and itching and runny nose, scratchy throat, itchy ears, sinusitis, boils, canker sores, yeast infections. Of course, I didn't relate that to anything because the doctor just would give me a pill, and then the pill would take the symptom away, and everything was fine. But of course, if I didn't take the pill, the symptom would come back. So I heard that there was going to be this talk on food allergies, and I went, and it changed my life. And I hadn't written any books by that time. I now have 6 out. And what I did is I heard this information, came home, and started learning more. I went back to school and read a book called Your Body's Your Best Doctor by he's a dentist, Melvin Page. And it was absolutely amazing what I read in that book. That changed my life too. Now, Melvin Page was a dentist in St. Petersburg, Florida. And what he did is he looked into the mouths of his clients and he saw this periodontal disease, pyorrhea, pockets, gum disorders, or osteoporosis of the mouth. Now, why is it osteoporosis of the mouth? Because your gums recede. Well, why do your gums recede? Your gums recede because the teeth have gotten smaller. Well, that's osteoporosis, right? Any bones that get smaller. So he looked at this and he said, I think this is a calcium deficiency. So what he did is he told these people to go home and eat lots of calcium, milk, this and that. And after 6 months, there was no difference. And he thought, gee, what else can I do to help them regrow their bones? So what he found is that he then went to the people and said, let's go home and eat a lot of phosphorus too, because that's in bones too. That didn't help either. So the next thing he did is he got out of the medical community's mode of what can I do to fix them. Now he was trying to fix them with calcium and phosphorus, but it didn't work. And he got out of that mode and went way over to another mode, which was, I wonder what they could be doing to cause their teeth decay. their osteoporosis, their headaches, any other disease. You see, no doctor looks at that. They just say, what have you got? And they give you a pill. Nobody says, what could you be doing that causes your disease? Well, that's what he got into a whole different mode of thinking. And this is what he came up with. He noticed that in many of his clients, the calcium is supposed to be 10 and the phosphorus 2. Now, this is what we call homeostasis, or balance in the body. How many have heard the word homeostasis? Good. If I'd done this when I did this 20 years ago, nobody had. Finally, this word was coined by a professor by the name of Walter Buchanan. He was head of the physiology department at Harvard. He was a Phi Beta Kappa. He wrote many, many books, and this was the word that he understood. And balance in the body means in your blood you have sugar, you have blood urea nitrogen, you have all sorts of things. And in that, you'll see that everything is supposed to be balanced. It's supposed to stay in a fine line called homeostasis. And he, Melvin Page understood this homeostasis. So what he did is he knew that homeostasis for the calcium should be 10 milligrams per deciliter, and homeostasis for the phosphorus should be 4 milligrams per deciliter in the bloodstream. That's the way it's supposed to be. And this is what he found out, that every time a person eats as little as 2 teaspoons of sugar, the calcium can go up to 12, and the phosphorus can drop as low as 2. That is not homeostasis. Now let's go back and look at the calcium-phosphorus ratio. If the calcium is 10 and the phosphorus is 4, that ratio is 2.5 to 1, right? There's 2.5 times the calcium as the phosphorus. And so after the abuse, when the phosphorus drops to 2 or thereabouts, and the calcium goes all the way up to 12, and that's no longer homeostasis, it doesn't have that ratio of 2.5 to 1. So let's take those results over, and you'll see that if we have the ratio, which the body wants to try to keep, of 2.5 to 1, that would mean that there would be 5 calcium and 2 phosphorus. There's only 2 phosphorus. The only calcium that can function is 5, because those minerals work in relationship to each other. So if you only have 5 that can function, you've got 7 extra units of calcium in the body, because the body's showing 12. And only 5 can function, so you have 7 extras. Just like it says there, 7 units of toxic calcium. Toxic calcium? Have you ever heard of that? No. Nobody says that, but you'll hear what happens to that toxic calcium. Now, not only does the calcium and phosphorus work in relationship to each other, but all of the minerals work in relationship to each other. So that if one of them drops, the other can be there, but it can't all function. And that's just what this chart shows. At the very top, we have the phosphorus, and see all the relationships. It's related to the calcium, it's related to the selenium, etc. You see, minerals all work in relationship to each other in the body. Okay, let's, so when the body's in homeostasis, the calcium's 10, the phosphorus is 4, and you multiply 2.5, that ratio, by 4, and you get the 10. But when you have abused your body and eaten that sugar, and again, this happens in everybody to a different degree. It depends on how old you are, what your genetic blueprint is, how much you've abused your body, how much stress you're under, how old you are. All those things tell how much you're going to upset your body chemistry and how long it's going to stay out of homeostasis. So as you can see, that ratio is the same. It still has to be 2.5, and you only have 5 functioning calcium. Well, that's not enough calcium. Your body needs at least 7.5, they feel, just to walk around. Now, again, how long does this last? When does it come back to homeostasis? It depends on, again, all those things that I told you. I did this experiment years ago. I had a nurse. It was actually in Orange County. And I had 2 nurses, and I had 20 people, and they came in and fasting, and I had them take blood to find out what the calcium-phosphorus ratio was. And most of them were pretty close to homeostasis. I gave them different forms of sugar. I gave another group potatoes, and to see what would happen. And exactly this, the calcium went up, the phosphorus dropped. With the potatoes, it didn't do anything. And then it came, of those 20 people, I could only keep them 4 hours. There's all these laws when you do experiments on people. Either they had to institutionalize them, which I couldn't afford, or I had to send them home. So they were there 4 hours. And I'd say that about 70% came back to homeostasis. So that's a 4-hour stint that you got there, that your body is not working well at all. Okay, so when you've upset your body chemistry like this, what happens is that you don't have those minerals. As I explained, those minerals work in relationship to each other. All of them do. So one of them drops, all the others can't function. Now what this means is you don't have, after eating the sugar, you don't have all the minerals. Now the food gets in the gut, and the enzymes start to digest the food. That's the way what happens. And unfortunately, when you don't have the minerals, the enzymes can't function as well, because all enzymes are dependent upon minerals to function. They can't work without minerals. Therefore, all the food doesn't digest. Now, when I said this 30 years ago, which I was doing, I would be booed out by doctors and nurses. Not anymore. You know, what's the old saying? First they ignore it, then they ridicule it, then they call it their own. Well, they've done that. And it's called gut permeability, or the leaky gut syndrome, or dysbiosis. And what happens is the food that's in the gut starts to putrefy. It can't be digested because the enzymes can't work, because the minerals aren't there, because you ate the sugar. Okay, back to that. It sits in the gut and irritates the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. And this undigested or partially digested food goes to the cells swell up, and the spaces between the cells swell up due to the irritation. And this undigested food gets into the bloodstream where it doesn't belong. And here is a few of the different articles that shows all about undigested food in the bloodstream. Food antigen absorption. Food antigen is that food that gets into the bloodstream. And the circulating immune complexes. You see, your immune system looks at this undigested food like a foreign invader and says, I got to get you out of here. You look like a cancer, a bacteria, a virus, etc. And again, it's just in a partially digested food. But of course, it's in too big a particle, so you can't, the cells, the blood cells, can't take in these vitamins and minerals, so you become deficient in your vitamin and minerals. And here are many of the articles, in case you wanted to know about that. This is literally in the literature of undigested, partially digested food in the bloodstream. That's another one we can't see, unfortunately, but these are just more articles. Okay, now at that time, when this partially digested food is getting into the bloodstream, the immune system comes at your defense and says, I got to get you out of here. So it The phagocytes gobble up the partially digested food, and it's squirted out of the body through the lymph. And this is what it's supposed to do. But you see, your immune system wasn't meant to do that. Every time you eat a food you're allergic to, every time you eat too much food, every time you eat sugar, all of these things, your immune system has to come to your defense. And finally it says, screw it, I can't do this anymore. So you exhaust your immune system, opening the door to infectious diseases and degenerative diseases. I believe disease is that simple. And it's not just sugar that does this. Sugar is the biggest offender, but as you can see, we're sort of creating this mess ourselves. Let's go back to this partially digested food in the bloodstream for a minute. It swims around in the bloodstream, causing havoc in the body, such as it can go to the face and cause the classic symptoms of allergy. And you see, this is an allergy, this partially digested food. Let's say, let's take a piece of apple pie. Now, apple pie has wheat, vanilla, apples, butter. That's all I can think of right now, and sugar. Now, in fact, most recipes have 2 times the amount of sugar as fruit. In fruit pies, that's disgusting. Fruit's sweet to start with, but I won't get into that right now. Anyway, so you've eaten this piece of pie, and maybe you had it with meat and potatoes and beans. Well, because the sugar will upset the body chemistry, that food won't digest, and some of that food, again, will get into the bloodstream. Now, it can go to the face, as I said, but now they know there's no blood-brain barrier for many things. And they know that this partially digested food will get into the brain and cause anger, fatigue, depression, schizophrenia, headaches. It can go to the joints and form the first form of arthritis, immune complexes in the joints. The doctors know that. They just don't know how these immune complexes get there. Well, I do. If you're arthritic and not on drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, do me a favor and don't eat for 2 days. Have carrot juice if you want, a small amount, and tea, and your pain, chances are, will go away, or a lot of it will go away. Could take longer than 2 days, but you'll be amazed what you find when you stop eating, and then you realize that something I put in my mouth has to do with how I feel. Okay, it can go to the nerves and cause multiple sclerosis. It can go to the skin and cause the acne. It can go to it could swim all over the bloodstream, causing problems. Edema, wake up one day, your rings fit, they don't the next, the ankles swell up. Now you're hearing where diseases come from. They didn't come from Louis Pasteur, it's germ theory, and you didn't inherit them. You created these diseases yourself by upsetting homeostasis. Okay? Sorry. Okay, again, just to repeat, when you eat the sugar and you're under stress, don't eat when you're stressed, the food won't digest. You upset your mineral relationships. You make the enzymes less available, causing the leaky gut syndrome or gut permeability, and this partially digested food gets into the bloodstream. The food lodges in the soft tissues and causes havoc in the body. The immune system looks at this food like a foreign invader and removes it from the bloodstream. Over a period of time, you exhaust your immune system, which opens the door to infectious and degenerative diseases. Now, here are some of the other things that disrupt homeostasis. And of course, you could have an overdose. A little sugar, drive on some of the freeways, your boss yelled at you, you ate too much food. You see, when you eat too much, and that's the reason people fall asleep after turkey dinner, and that's just food allergy, because you only have so many enzymes. So you can exhaust those enzymes then too, even though maybe you didn't have any sugar. But when you eat too much, you only have so many enzymes, so some of that food gets into the bloodstream and causes an immune response again. So sugar, alcohol, caffeine, many pharmaceutical drugs, but God bless the pharmaceutical industry in many ways. They saved many lives through antibiotics for certain things, but they're used far, far too much. Antacids, many antibiotics, aspirin, overheated fat, hydrogenated fat, trans fats, overcooked food, some food additives, artificial sweeteners, and again, eating too much. So all of those, and I didn't put stress here, but it certainly should be number one. In my next life, I'm going to be a shrink because I think that that's really more important than food is, how you think and how you deal with your problems. Oh, okay, this is, you don't know, but I should. I started 30 years ago when I wrote Lick the Sugar Habit, collecting reasons why sugar was ruining your health. And here I have 140, you can't read them, but they're in each one of my books. I think there were 70 in Lick the Sugar Habit. My next one I put 110. In my latest book I have 140 reasons why sugar's ruining your health, all from medical journal articles. They're out there. They're just not looking at this information. If I go to PubMed and type in adverse reactions to sugar, or sucrose, which is the other name, or sweeteners, I tried all sorts of things. I get a little about dental decay and a little about obesity. That's it. Well, let me read you a few of these, just out of... Sugar can cause atherosclerosis. Sugar can promote the elevation of low-density lipoproteins. Sugar lowers the enzyme's ability to function. Well, we talked about that. Sugar intake is associated with the development of Parkinson's cells. Sugar can increase the amount of liver fat. Sugar can increase kidney size. This goes on, 140 of these. They're all there. Everybody thought that fat was the biggest problem until just recently. Fats is not a problem. Trans fat, hydrogenated fats, overheated fats, those are the problems. But there's nothing wrong with eggs and butter and meat. Nothing. If you, hopefully, what man has done to these products is the sin. He's hormoned them and, given them antibiotics too much and the rest of it to try to make them healthy. Just makes them live longer but certainly not healthier. There's some more. More. Okay. This is a great slide. This information comes from Loma Linda University. Again, this is a research project. The phagocytes are parts of your immune system that gobble up the foreign invaders. The bottom line shows the glycemic index. All I have there is the phagocytic index, but the bottom one that starts at 16 is the glycemic index. And as you eat the sugar, excuse me, it's the other way around. The top one is the glycemic index, and the bottom one's the phagocytic index. There you can see on the right-hand side the blood glucose levels. Normally, when your body's in homeostasis and you haven't eaten anything, your blood glucose is approximately 85. Ideal, it's 85. And they're now saying if you have less than 100, you're okay. Well, I agree. Don't let them get up to 110 and say you're okay. You're not. You're pre-diabetic. And the phagocytes, those little white cells, can gobble up 16 foreign invaders when your body's in homeostasis at the beginning. Now you eat the sugar, and normally your blood glucose goes up. Of course it has to, because you've had sugar. Fruit will make it do it too, anything with sugar in it. When you break down the carbohydrates, they're broken down into simple sugars, but very slowly in the body, and they don't raise it to 130 like this is. But that's normal. But look what happens to your phagocytic index as you eat the sugar. It starts going down, so that your immune system has become compromised as you eat the sugar, every time you eat it, which opens at that time, you're more infectious, you're more prone to infectious and degenerative diseases. Unfortunately, a diabetic, blood sugar goes very, very high. The phagocytic index actually drops to 0. And that's the reason why diabetics are so susceptible to diseases. So after about 4 hours, your body comes back to homeostasis. Well, unfortunately, today, because we're eating so much sugar every 2 or 3 hours, that the blood glucose stays up here all the time, and the phagocytic index stays way down all the time, and makes you all the time more susceptible to diseases. That's good. Okay? Here's another rather interesting one. This again is from Loma Linda. His name was Steinman, the guy that did these, and I tried to get a hold of him. I'm sure he's dead now. This was 30 years ago. And he couldn't tell me as much as I wanted. They're showing here that the phagocytic index is 10 before the person comes in, and it's 10. Now, why is it 10? And then after a 12-hour fast, it's a 12-hour fast, it's approximately 10 still. And then it, slides a little, and then it goes up to 60, meaning that when you fast, your phagocytic index is stronger. It can gobble up 60 foreign invaders after a 60-hour fast. Well, my question to him was, why was it 10 when I was told that when a person fasts, it should be 17 or 18? And I think that whoever they used here, and how many, I don't know, that the person was allergic to some food or had eaten some sugar, and they started out only at 10. But that's my opinion. I have no idea. For sure. Yes, I have an idea, but not for sure. Okay, here's the same, another one from this study, where it shows starch and sugar after digestion. And it shows that the starches, which are in the white, start at 15, 15 or 16, and so does the sugar. So that the person fasting, both of the people or groups fasting had approximately this. After they ate sugar or starch, in a half hour, you can see what happened to the sugars. The phagocytic index started to drop. That black line starts to drop and drop and drop. And look at the starches just dropped a little, but nothing like the sugars. So again, people are saying don't eat potatoes and rice because it raises the glucose. Well, it does raise the glucose, but if you eat that rice or potatoes with fat and protein, it doesn't do that because you've got other things in your body that keep it stable. But you eat the sugar with fat and protein, and it might not go up as much, but it still suppresses the immune system. So there you are. Here's a little more information about sugar. Sugar is a known immunosuppressant. Here, I'll read from here. It destroys the germ-killing ability of the white blood cells for up to 5 hours after ingestion, reduces the production of antibodies, interferes with the transport of vitamin C. Oh, okay. I'd like to talk about this just for a minute because this is fascinating. There's 3 types of malnutrition. And the first one is primary malnutrition. And when this happens, you just don't put enough food in your mouth. That's easy. You don't get the nutrients because you don't have enough food. Secondary malnutrition, you eat enough food, but you eat abusive foods, potato chips, Coca-Cola, etc. The food which you do and foods to which you react, allergic foods, fried foods, overprocessed foods, and eating too much of the food. The food can become toxic and it will not get into the cells to function on the cellular level. That's the whole key to health, is getting healthy food into the cells to function properly. So primary nutrition is not eating enough. Secondary nutrition is eating sugar and fried foods and foods you're allergic to and overeating, and it can't get into the cells and function. But this third type is the most interesting, tertiary malnutrition. You eat enough food, you don't have abusive food, you're doing it all right, you haven't reacted to any food, and the food is not fried or overcooked, and you don't eat too much. Well, why doesn't it get into the cell and function? If you're distressed, angry, holding judgments against others, or holding other negative emotions, the food can become toxic and cannot function on the cellular level. So, as I say again, don't eat that food when you're stressed. Either pray if that's part of your lifestyle, exercise, write in your journal, do yoga, exercise, anything to bring your body back to homeostasis so that it doesn't feel stressed and the food will digest. Okay, next one. Today they have a word called psychoneuroimmunology. The medical field calls it this. Psychology, the nerves, and immunology, the little white blood cells. Well, I think they've blown it again. I think it should be called psychoneuroendocrino, because the endocrine system, that insulin and the thyroid and the adrenals, all those play such a role in homeostasis. And of course, the most important one to me is gastro, what you put in your stomach. So this is what it should be called, psychoneuroendocrino-gastroimmunology. Maybe they'll get there, but I probably won't see it. I'd like to give you all now, since we have a little time, and I know that how much stress plays a role in disease, why don't we all take a little test right now? So put down your pens and shut your eyes and fantasize along with me. And I'm going to show you what a thought can do to your body. Okay, close your eyes and here we go. You're going out to an apple orchard and it's been fertilized with good fertilizer. It's the healthiest looking tree you've ever seen. And you look up and you see that tree and you jump up, get a little exercise, and pull down an apple. And look at the apple. And then now you want to, lemon. You're going out to get lemons, not apples. So look at those lemons and jump up and get a lemon and bring it down and smell that lemon. Now cut the lemon in half with your little Boy Scout knife that you just took out of your back pocket. Now would you smell the inside of the lemon? Now would you take a lick out of that lemon? Okay, imagine that all of you are salivating or thinking about salivating. Well, you can see what just a thought of a lemon can do to the body chemistry. You've changed that. So you can see what an angry thought, a depressed thought, all those thoughts holding judgments against others can do to your body too. And it does. There's no doubt about it. The body's not in homeostasis at that time. Those are the books I have out now. I was told not to answer questions here, but if you've written them down, I hope I will be at the booth and I'll be glad to help anyone I can with any questions. Thank you very much.